We really like to be able to highlight our farmers in Indiana. It's an opportunity for you to hear what's going on in your own backyard, some successes, some challenges that they've overcome, and it also gives you another person to connect with and reach out with in your community. So we're really excited. This year we invited Darby Simpson to come and give our keynote today. For those of you who haven't read his biography in the program or don't know Darby, he started his own enterprise in 2007 working on a 7th generation farm in Martinsville, Indiana. So he was born and raised and grew up here. So on his farm, he raises broiler chickens, turkeys, hogs, and pastured beef. He comes to farming with a mechanical engineering background, so maybe he'll share a little bit about how he puts that knowledge to use on his farm a little bit, but it's been really innovative. And so we're really excited for him to share his story today about what got him interested in farming, how his enterprise has grown over the years, how it's able to sustain his family, and what his path forward looks like. So if you all would like to give a warm welcome to Darby, thank you very much.
Now, I'm using a handheld or I'm using this?
It's up to you.
Okay.
That one's on.
Okay. I'll try to do this.
Walk around with it.
Okay.
Don't trip on the cord.
Okay. I'll do my best to be gracious. Okay. Well, thanks for being here today. So kind of what I'm going to share with you this afternoon is it's going to kind of feel like a few things. It's going to feel like a little bit of a history lesson. I'm going to kind of walk you through, how we started, because I really do want to inspire you.
I hope I didn't break anything.
Oops. Not sure what that did.
There.
Okay.
Now try that.
All right. It's always nice when the state engineering school can get our computer hooked up. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for coming. This is going to feel like a few different things. It's going to be a little bit of a history lesson. I really want to share with you, how we got started, because it really was from humble beginnings. I started our first farming enterprise with about $600 because that's all I could scrounge. I'm going to kind of walk you through, how we built our business, kind of a look back, like how it's grown and transformed, what our marketing strategy has been. Although this is not a marketing session, and then it's also going to get a little bit real, because one of my, concerns with sometimes people that you listen and speak to in this space is that it's a little too rah-rah. Okay, so there's a definite dose of reality that's contained within this as well. So we'll kind of dive in, and I'll just kind of tell you how I began my entry into farming. So the short version of my history growing up, I grew up on our family farm. It's been in my family since 1828. Back in 2003, 2004, started to get interested in farming, but I was actually interested in farming when I was a little kid. And around 5 years old, I started to show this inclination to want to farm. And I can remember as clearly as yesterday, my grandfather took me aside and he said, "You need to go do something else. Don't become a farmer. You can't make a living in farming." So I went and did something else. Kind of come from the mechanical engineering realm, do systems design, and went and did that. And then when I got into my early 30s, I still had this itch to farm, so I started kind of exploring some different things that I could do with our family land. And shockingly, I thought I wanted to be a vegetable farmer. So I actually found Elliott Coleman and some other resources like that, and started researching those types of enterprises. But then before too long, I found Joel Salatin and started researching livestock. And long story made short, through some prayerful direction, just felt like, hey, we're supposed to do livestock. So that's kind of what we did. how did I develop my first marketing strategy? I'm an engineer by trade. We are nothing if not pragmatic and follow instructions. So in Joel Salatin's Pastured Poultry Profits book, he says, hey, raise 50 broilers and give them away. So that's what I did. I set out to give away 50 chickens, and we got to about the fourth person after convincing the first three that we wouldn't kill them with a chicken that we were going to raise on our farm and butcher and sell to them, and explained to this person what we were doing. And she was actually a vegan, but she would cook for her family. We still having some issues with this thing? Tell you what, we're gonna do away with the clicker. But so she would cook for her family and explain to her what we were doing, and she said, "Oh, that sounds great. I'll take 3. How much are they?" Well, you don't understand, Joel. You don't have to buy them. They're free. I'll just give you one to try. I'm just looking for some feedback. And she said, "No, you don't understand. I'm going to buy 3. How much are they?" And from there, so yeah, a vegan was actually my first paying customer. Thought that was kind of cool. So from there on, we started selling the rest of these 50 chickens, and we got 50, we butchered 45, and they were all gone. We took that money, we built another chicken tractor, reinvested the money, ordered 100 chickens, and it just kind of grew from there. That was back in 2007. So, it sounds counterintuitive, but something that helped me to have a really open mind was the fact that when my grandfather said, go do something else, I didn't learn anything about farming. So when I circled back to this some 20 years later, 25 years later, I had a very open mind. So we've done things with a very pasture-based, chemical-free mentality as much as we can. And that really kind of opened me up to learning from Joel Salatin. Greg Judy is another great teacher, a guy I've had the opportunity to meet with in the past and get to know, and just some of these other guys that kind of had a different bent on how they went about livestock farming. So that's been really positive for us, and it just has led us to a point where I was able to farm full-time for 10 years. It was pretty much the main income source for our family. We had a little bit of other income here and there, and that's why I want to encourage you, no matter what you want to do, if you want to farm full-time, if you want to farm part-time, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I want to encourage you that you can do this. There are people that do want local food, and they're willing to pay what you need to charge in order to make it worth your while to go do it. The big thing with that is that this takes a massive amount of time and energy to go out and market food this way. It's not easy. Getting a farm business up and going is not a quick process. I was telling the folks in my session this morning, I've done a lot of workshops and stuff, and I've had guys reach out to me and say, so if I take this course or whatever, I'll be farming full time and making $70,000 a year in a year, right? No, you won't. Unless you've got $70,000 you're going to live on, sure. But it's not fast. This is a slow process. You got to be very intentional. And I'll kind of get into our sales a little bit, because to understand where somebody's at now, you got to understand where they've been. So basically, all of our sales fall into one of 3 categories. We do a lot of retail. That's most of it. It's probably 50%. Bulk's about probably 35 to 40%, and then we've had this 10 to 15% of our business that was this merging of, we don't really do wholesale. I'm not really a wholesale kind of guy. But we would do some discounts for stores and restaurants. And that's just kind of been a sliver of our business, if you will. But while we don't offer true wholesale pricing, we really have not found that to be a big issue. It increases profitability and it reduces your production needs. You've just got to be able to go out and meet customers and communicate what it is you're doing and show them value. So one reason I bring this up is that a lot of folks, they've got a smaller land base, right? And so this becomes really vital if you've got a smaller land base. I talk a lot about taking advantage making the most of your unfair advantage, right? My unfair advantage is my farm is near Martinsville, so I was perfectly situated because my great-great-great-grandfather, that's where he decided to set up shop, between Bloomington and Indianapolis. So we were like 35 to 45 minutes away from all these wonderful places to go retail at full price our products. You know, that works for us. That's our unfair advantage. I talked with a guy like Greg Judy. I mean, Greg's able to lease ground for as cheap as $10 an acre. You know, so his unfair advantage is that he can get lots of ground cheap, so he can sell semi-loads, literally, of finished 100% grass-fed beef. You know, so you've really got to kind of take a step back and look at like, well, what's my advantage? What do I want to do, and how do I marry all that together? So, you know, your marketing strategy is going to look totally different than mine. It's going to look totally different than the next guy's, and it's really just going to vary greatly depending on a number of different factors. Again, people ask, well, what should my marketing strategy be? And it's like, well, this is what I've done, or this is what this person's done, but you've got to kind of pick and choose, right? And kind of just dissect little pieces and work those in to your marketing strategy based on your own personal context. So, a little bit about our business. 2018 was really when we reached our peak overall financial production, even though we started cutting back on certain areas of production. We'd started to cut back a little bit on poultry. We were still producing a lot of it, but we had started to trim that back. Some contextual stuff in there, like cutting down the number of batches so we could have like this intentional 2-week break in the summer to take some time off. There's this thing called a vacation that I had never heard of before. And evidently those are good things to do. So we started planning in some intentional breaks. That was one reason we started to cut back a little bit. But that year we finished 20 head of cattle. We're 100% grass-fed, no gimmicks, no grains, 60 forest-raised pigs. We did 90 Thanksgiving turkeys. We've done as many as 130 turkeys. 1,600 pastured broilers. We've done as many as 3,000. We did about 300 round bales of hay. That year we accomplished all this on 75 acres of leased ground. I have to lease this back from my family. Most of the ground I'm paying the same rate as the tenant farmer. So we've had to cash flow that. It's often misconstrued that, well, if you have family land, it's free. Well, it's not free. We have these things called property taxes and upkeep and all that stuff, and we've had to pay for it. So what we were able to do was to gross around $4,000 an acre. So like I said, our sales exceeded $200,000. That's where we really peaked out. Some of our profit goals, these are just kind of rules of thumb. We're trying to make about $15 a chicken, $55 a turkey, $600 on a pig, $1,500 on a cow. And that sounds glorious, right? But it's taken us a really long time to get there. Specifically, our poultry, while super labor intensive, is also super profitable, especially when you look at like an acre. Our net, not gross, but our net, like if we dip under $10,000 on 1 acre producing poultry, we're really unhappy. Our high was over $11,500. Now we had some really great weather. We had some really neat extenuating circumstances that led to all that, but we have netted that much on poultry per acre. Again, starting from $600 and one 8x8 Joel Salatin designed chicken tractor and 50 broiler chicks. This is what we were able to build this to. But it took 11 years to get here. You don't get here overnight. So we've done all this by direct marketing all of our products and controlling the retail prices at which we sell. I'm just a big believer in that. I don't fault anybody for doing wholesale, but that's just not me. It's not how I'm wired up. It's not how we wanted to run our business. Again, we take advantage of our unfair advantage, our location. We were able to do the Bloomington Farmers Market. It was 30 minutes away, 35 minutes away. Broad Ripple's about 50 minutes away. So we could hit a lot of people going north and south, not too far from our farm. That's been a huge advantage. This does require an extremely high level of customer handling. And I do mean a high level, a lot that most people don't want to do. It's a lot of customer interaction, a lot of customer service, but for us, we find that the added profits make it really worthwhile. So I'm a sucker for a good quote, and this is one thing I've really noticed doing some one-on-one consulting and speaking with people is that people are in such a hurry to launch their product or business, they seldom look at marketing from a bird's eye view, and they don't create a systematic plan. And kind of what I want to show you today, part of this presentation, is what was our systematic plan, because there are so many resources to go grow stuff. I don't care if it's lettuce or it's a cow or anything in between, there's an expert that has done it or is still doing it and has got resources that you can use to learn how to do that as well. But there's really not, in the farm space, a whole lot of people saying, but this is how you run a business, and this is how you filter in personal context into your farm and your life and marketing and managing all these different things. And we as farmers, we just want to go produce. We don't want to do the not fun stuff, right? Especially as a business owner. I mean, there's not a whole lot of business owners that really get all giddy about doing paperwork and accounting. But it's super important. And one of the reasons I like speaking and teaching is because I believe in the mission of clean food, and I don't want to see people blow themselves up. And I will tell you, having been doing this since 2007, I mean, there's a couple other people in this room that have been farming locally almost that long. Most people aren't, and a lot of those people are divorced. This is a very hard lifestyle. I told you there's a dose of reality in this. So I don't want to see people blow themselves up. That's why I like trying to teach and share as much as I can so that you can farm and still be happy. So marketing reality, a main area of failure I see, just an overall lack of experience with marketing. Failure to build the customer base required to make this worthwhile, whether that's part-time or full-time. It's a difficult thing to build up that number of customers and sell enough product where you can make it worthwhile, right? A lot of us get into farming from a very idealistic approach, and there's nothing wrong with that, but like your fortitude only goes so far. At some point, your bank account will start to drag you down mentally. It will suck you dry. So we've got to approach this from a business mentality to make it cash flow so that you're putting money back in there so that you can live off of it, you can reinvest, and you can keep going because you're trying to produce local food. I mean, that's the goal, right? So, and regardless if it's part-time or full-time, this is still a failure. It's still something everybody needs to do. And again, I don't care what you're selling, what niche of farming you're in. I'm in livestock, but if you're a veg producer, or you're doing mushrooms or microgreens, it does not matter. You've really got to dial down, build up that customer base. A lot of people just get so laser focused on production, they don't want to give that 2 minutes worth of thought. They'll just go out, go headlong, and I literally have had people call me and say, I'm going to have 20 pigs finished in 2 months. I should probably start figuring out how to sell those. What do I do? It's like, oh my gosh. They got so amped up about producing, they just hadn't thought about, well, how do I go sell this? So again, you have to step back, look at what everybody else is doing, overlay that with what you want to do, and come up with a marketing strategy. And I always tell people, start slow, right? You can always produce more. That's a good thing. For 3 or 4 years, we couldn't keep up because we started small. It was always, well, you're out of this. When are you going to have more? When are you going to add this product? Or, we started with poultry, and then we added pork. And, well, how fast are you going to have beef, right? It felt bad at the time, but looking back, that was a really good problem to have versus the flip side of that is I've got freezers full of stuff and no way to sell it. So you have to adjust your marketing strategies and develop a marketing strategy over time. You've got to take into account your personal style, geographic location. I'm going to run through a few basic things that we've done. These are not theories or ideas. This is what we've done. Okay. Our main 5 ways we sell stuff: direct retail at farmers markets. That's still number 1, always has been. Direct retail on farm. Discounted retail to stores and chefs. We do less and less of that, more and more. Direct wholesale to families is number 2. It's been number 2 for a long time. And then we've done some discounted wholesale to stores, meaning they'll buy a whole pig or a whole cow and they'll actually retail it cut by cut using our pricing structure in our label, but we give them a greater discount, and they can make more money that way. For us, just with how our business is set up and our personalities, like hauling in 50 pounds of ground beef or 25 pounds of this bratwurst to stores has just never really worked out that well for us. It has with some restaurants, but not really stores. We've just found that with some mom and pop owned natural food stores, they would just as soon buy the whole animal and retail it and kind of take a little bit more risk, but make some more profit. So those are our 5 main techniques. Now, we've done all kinds of spin-offs from these 5 that I don't have time to go into today, but these are the main 5. We're going to go through them real quick here. Number 1, direct retail at farmers markets. A lot of pros. You have a very sifted group of shoppers at a farmer's market. Look, somebody that's in a parking lot on a Saturday morning when it's raining wants to be there. They believe in real food. They're there to vote with their feet and vote with their wallet. It's hard to get a more sifted shopper when it comes to local food than at that venue. They're open 50 weeks out of the year, at least here, because we've got winter and summer markets. It gives you access to literally thousands of unique customers every week. You have new people that show up each week, people that move into the area. A lot of customers that we've met and created at the farmers market, they turn into our bulk customers. Like at some point, they're spending so much on retail, they'll start asking, hey, how much is a half of a cow or a quarter cow or a whole hog? Is it cheaper? Yes, it's cheaper. Can I please sell you one? Right? I'd much rather sell a whole animal than to stand out here and sell it piece by piece if I can. You get full retail value for your product. You got to do the math. You got to put together the spreadsheet. You've got to set the prices. I'll be talking about that later this afternoon. How do you go about that? But you get to keep all the money. That's a beautiful thing. Cons. There are no guaranteed sales, right? Weather can be your friend or enemy. I cannot tell you how many thunderstorms and lightning storms I have gone through. I cannot tell you how many times I've literally stood outside in 10-degree weather, maybe 0 degree with a wind chill, selling stuff at a farmer's market. I mean, it's, you name it, I've seen it. So it can hurt you, but a gorgeous day on the flip side can really help you. Something people don't think about, a 4-hour farmer's market is about a 9-hour investment at a time. If you're a veg farmer, it's longer because of your setup and tear down, travel, getting prepped the day before, unpacking everything when you get home. Hiring help to cover a market doesn't always produce good results. I know some people that have had better results than others, but generally speaking, if you hire somebody to go do that for you, they'll do about 50 to 60% of the sales that you would normally do. This is more true on the livestock side. I think that's a little bit less true on the veg side, but on the livestock side, people want to look into the eyes that raise the animal that they're about to eat. Big negative. If you can't cover your market and you have to hire somebody, we've been fortunate over the years. We've been able to hire some folks to fill in here and there that have done a fantastic job, honestly better than I did. But that's just something to keep in mind. Management changes at a farmer's market can be absolutely devastating. This is totally out of your control. One of the best farmers markets I ever did, changed managers and changed locations. We stuck it out for 2 years, watched our sales dip almost 50% in 2 years. And we'd been there for a long time. And again, totally out of my control. I couldn't do anything. We switched farmers markets to save our business. Just being real, we had to switch farmers markets, we wouldn't have made it. This can have a very negative effect on family activities and personal social interactions. When do things happen in our society? Birthday parties, soccer games, picnics. It's on Saturday. You just committed 9 or 10 hours to go to farmer's market. Your kid wants to play baseball. Tough crap. I got to go to the farmer's market. We fought that for years. It's a reality. But it is an amazing way to sell a lot of product, to meet a lot of customers, to build a big customer base that you can market to, virtually, social media, email. There's just no faster way to get in front of people. Direct retail farm sales, we've done this on farm at certain times, like when we'd have our bulk chicken pickup for our discount chicken program. we're set up, we have to be there to pass out chickens. We would make ourselves open for that time frame. We'll also let people come buy stuff by appointment. They can place an order online, show up and pick it up. We're not driving any place. This is great. You still get full retail price. You can integrate it into your day or week. I know some people that like, hey, we're open on farm on whatever, Tuesday afternoon from 3 to 7. Like that's our on-farm hours. You can set those days and times for customers to come when it works for you. Great stack on sales technique if you've got a CSA of any kind set up already, if they're picking up a veg basket for us, our chicken program. It took us a couple of years to get that through our dense heads, that people would buy stuff that we had in the freezer. They'd come to get chickens and they'd be like, hey, by the way, do you have any pork chops in there? You got any of those brats, or you have any ground beef or anything? And we finally got it through our heads that like maybe we should just like set up like we're at the farmer's market and sell stuff, and then start leveraging this email list we've built to tell people like, hey, we're open today. We've got fresh chicken, we've got frozen beef and pork. And I will tell you that at home in 4 hours, there have been days we've done like $2,000 to $2,500. Now we would only do that 3 or 4 times a year, but when you're cash flowing a business and it's your full-time occupation, that feels like $10,000. Cons, it can be a real hassle to stop working in the middle of the day to meet a customer. You have to coordinate days and times to be open or set an appointment. That's a pain in the neck. 12 emails later, you find a 15-minute window where somebody can stop by and get something. And sales can sometimes be small and more of a frustration. God love them, but I have some people, I don't know how many times they've been to the farm. I don't think they've ever spent more than like $32. And it's just, I got to stop, and I think about that, like, oh my gosh, I got to stop, go up there, clean up, change shoes so I can get in the freezer, get their stuff. It can be a hassle, but it can also generate a lot of income. This is a picture of my youngest. He's eating, let's see, that was some of our pizza brats. That was in a dish at Taxman Brewery on the south side in Bargersville. Discounted retail to stores and chefs. Additional income stream is part retail, part bulk. We do like a somewhere 15-ish, 20% discount. That's about as steep as we get. Provide you with a quick way to scale up production, taking advantage on your economies of scale. Now, when I first started farming, I didn't do farmers markets really for about 3 years. But I figured out real fast, because Excel told me, you've got to scale your business up. You're hauling these chickens an hour and a half to a processor. You've got to scale, and your profits aren't linear, they're exponential, because you start amortizing your time, right? Basic economies of scale. If I'm hauling 50 chickens or 550 chickens, it's the same amount of time, but my profit goes way up. So I actually marketed to restaurants. I called restaurants that were literally on my trek home, and some stores, and dropped off chickens. Even to the point when our batch sizes were hitting 300 or 400 birds, by the time I get home I'd have like 100 birds left, because I would have dropped them all off. I didn't have to store them or freeze them or anything. So that really can work. It allows you to scale fast. Okay, and you can add retail, farmers market stuff on the backside of that. If you're still working off farm full time, I think it's a great strategy. It worked for me. If you don't want to go do a farmers market, this is a great strategy. You can function stack onto other trips. My wife would drop orders to this restaurant when she'd take our kids to a class, because she literally drove right past it. So this particular restaurant, Taxman, was like 2 or 3 minutes out of her way. So it was just a neat function stack. And you can also schedule home delivery or buying club drops into the schedule as well. That's something else we've done that's along the same lines, right? Where people are pre-ordering, and maybe if they order over a certain amount, they get a discount, or you drop it off or whatever. We've had some success with that. Cons, difficulties getting our price through these venues. I'm not cheap. When people walk up to the farmer's market and start asking me about price, and like after a few years you can read people, and I'm like, as in a kind manner as I can say it, like, I'm not the cheapest guy here. I'm the most expensive guy here. If you want to know why, I will be happy to explain it to you. The cheap guy's down there. Same thing going into a restaurant, like especially with proteins, it's usually price. Now, there's a couple of exceptions. There's a couple of chefs that they truly cared about quality, and they were willing to work with us on our price. But we had a hard time saying, hey, we can only give you a 15 or 20% discount. I actually had a store owner one time tell me I was greedy for not giving him a 40% discount on poultry. At 40% off, I was breaking even on poultry. So I told him I did not want to work for free so he could sell my chicken. Have a strong policy of getting paid on time. I once chased a $300 check for almost 120 days. That was my very first restaurant order, and I heard every excuse under the sun, just shy of the dog ate my homework, of why I couldn't get my $300, which at the time when we were just starting felt like $3,000. Be honest with yourself and set reasonable profit margins and stick to them. Don't give in to get a quick sale. Huge pitfall, and once you go down to that price, it's hard to go back up. Direct wholesale to families, for me, this is where it's at. This is awesome. I think buying in bulk fell out of favor for a long time, but we've had a very strong number of families that buy in bulk, and we have a really high retention rate. It's a very natural progression if they're buying cuts at a farmer's market. And we've never looked at this, or at least I haven't looked at this as a loss of revenue. Yeah, we don't make as much money, but I can now go from, well, I was raising 10 pigs to retail, well, now I can just raise 20 pigs and wholesale half of them. And now I'm leveraging my equipment, my knowledge base, my livestock trailer, all these things. Feed gets cheaper. You know, you start buying in bulk instead of bags, it gets cheaper. This has been huge for us. This is really kind of what was our big tipping point when we got our bulk sales up and figured it out. It really put us into a new stratosphere of being able to take our business to the next level. And that's why I'm here speaking to you, is to encourage you to take your business to the next level, whatever that level is, however you define it. So, huge advantage in terms of labor, maximizing equipment economies of scale. All these things start coming into play. One thing we found out real fast is that when we develop a bulk customer in one area, they're usually doing at least two of the critters, and a lot of times the trifecta. Right? We had people that were doing bulk chicken, bulk pork, and a bulk cow. When you actually had a customer email me and say, hey, can you tell me how much I spent with you last year? We're going to do the same thing next year. I want to budget ahead. And I think at that point our sales were probably up to, $140,000, $150,000 a year. And I put all that in and I was like, oh, holy crap, Jessica was over 4% of my sales. One family. You know what else Jessica did? Told all her friends. They have been our biggest cheerleaders. They're our best non-paid marketing crew, just because they believe in us and they believe in good, clean food. So big cash flow advantages, getting a deposit up front and then all the cash on the back end really helps you get through the lean times. Always collect a non-refundable deposit. That's about the only negative here. You got to collect a deposit. People got to have some skin in the game. I've only ever had one person stiff me on a bulk order, and he had actually put down $100 on a half of a pig. And I had a gal that wanted a half of a pig. This guy had already turned in his cuts, and she called, and I said, well, I've got a half in the freezer, but this is what happened, and this is how it's cut. And she said, I don't know if I'm interested. I probably wouldn't pick some of those things. I wouldn't want to pay for that. I said, did I mention you get $100 off? So I just took his deposit and gave her the discount. She said, I'll be there this afternoon. That's the only time I've ever had that issue. I raised my deposits. We've never had a problem since. People have some skin in the game. They won't stiff you. Discounts, wholesale to stores. Those are some nice looking steaks. I know you all just ate, but I'm kind of proud of those. We grew those. Along with some local asparagus. That's about my favorite meal right there. Taking bulk wholesale to the next level. So again, this is really drilling down for us, but working with some stores and some restaurants where we're selling them a whole animal. They're using the whole animal in-house, or they're marketing that whole animal. They get a larger, so the guy that wants more money, that wants more profit, this is how he does it, right? He's got to take that whole pig or that whole cow and retail it. So they'll purchase the whole animals. We'll give them an additional discount over a family. Usually they're buying more than one animal, and that's a relationship we want to foster. So they'll give us a non-refundable deposit. That works the same, but we can then sell them this, and they can make 30-35% on what they spend. using our retail pricing structure. Some of them will use their own retail pricing structure. And they're promoting local in their store, right? And they get a really, nice niche product that fills a gap. I mean, a lot of store owners have told us, like, we've got good and we've got better, but we really want something that's really more regenerative agriculture, right? Where it is 100% grass-fed, or if it's pigs, they're raised outside and they're getting fed organic grain. Like, that's what they're after. And we're not certified organic, but they're after somebody who is basically using those types of practices in their farming. Definitely this is the smallest portion of our sales, but it's very scalable. So no matter where you're at, if this is something that you think could work for you, like, you can scale this up as big as you want it. Biggest advantages for the farm business are that just, again, the increased efficiency and economies of scale. Now, well, maybe I'm not going to go from 20 pigs to 30 pigs, but I might go from 20 to 24, right? And again, I'm just leveraging all that stuff. I have to have it anyway. This has helped us get some farm name recognition, being in a legit retail setting. And then early on, for years, Ocean Air downtown, for about 3.5 years, our poultry was all that the chef there carried. And people who thought we were weird and thought we would make their families sick with food, when they found out that our stuff was on the menu at Ocean Air, it's like, oh, well, you're legit. Like, you're not going to kill me if I buy your stuff. No, we're not going to kill you. But it gives you some name recognition. It's kind of a little feather in the cap, but it does help. So we'll kind of transition a little bit here to walk through some farm history. So how did we do this? How did we go from $600 to $200,000 in sales? A lot of blood, sweat, and tears, literally. A lot of blood, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears, concussions, broken bones, lacerations, you name it. 2007 to 2009, I worked off farm full-time, had a stay-at-home wife and mother with 2 very small kids. My boys, when we got those first chickens, were almost 5 and 2. They were little. Now they're both bigger than me. But that's how we started. 50 broilers. Then we did that second batch of 100. I sold all those via email. Once Jill bought those first 3 chickens, I had this confidence, like, I can sell these things. So we just started networking. And I was just like, well, who in my email address book, basically friends and family, might be interested in this? And I sent them a very, not pushy email and said, hey, this is kind of what we're doing. If you want more information, let me know. If you know somebody that might be interested in this, please forward this message on. And I think that those first 45 chickens, we had like 12 or 15 families maybe that bought some of those. They ate the chicken and are like, oh my gosh, this is real food. And they tell people, right? They took our next email and forwarded it on. And those first 2 batches, I think we kept like 3 or 4 chickens out of 150 birds. We sold everything else. So that's kind of how we began. And then 2008, we went from 150 to 1,000 chickens, and we did 7 pigs, which was really scary. We conducted our first few farmers markets, just a couple to kind of put our toes in the water to see what that felt like. 2009, we jumped up 2,000 broilers, 20 pigs. I'm still working off farm full-time. Commuted from Martinsville to downtown Indy, working 50 hours a week a lot of the time. I personally did 2 farmers markets. I did one on Wednesday afternoon, and I did one on Saturday. And this is the point at which I was maxed out. We were not going to grow our business beyond this, working off farm full time. And at that time, I can't tell you that I wanted to farm full time, but I had not put a plan together. I really didn't know where this was going. Like, I didn't know how this whole experiment was going to pan out. Because when we went into this and I did that first Excel spreadsheet, I'm like, oh my gosh, can I sell chicken for this much? This is like triple or quadruple what a chicken is in the store. But I determined very quickly, like, either people will pay this price or we'll only do it for us. It'll be a homesteading thing, not a business thing. So being maxed out, we really didn't know where things were going to go. Last week of March, first week of April 2010, I got laid off. Great recession, hit a lot of people. When you're in the engineering industry and you do systems designs for buildings and no one is building anything, no one needs a systems design engineer. So we had some money in our savings account, and it was literally an act of faith. Shoved it all into the middle of the table and just went for it. Put together a financial plan we could get from April 1st to Thanksgiving. And beyond that, I could have been broke and destitute. I had no idea. But there were no engineering jobs. We'd started this thing. I knew to take it to the next level, I had to go all in, so that's what we did. And when I say we went all in, we went all in. 3,000 broilers, 75 turkeys, 40 pigs, and we finished 8 cows. And we ramped up the farmers markets. I was personally doing 3 to 4 farmers markets a week. I was very tired. Raising all this stuff, and this is no outside labor. This is no help. This is me, myself, and I, just 3 of us, right? I get some buddies to come help load chickens, and we had to load them up for the butcher, and I'd basically, give them some chicken to help load chicken. But we never paid anybody. We didn't have any paid help. It was all volunteer. And but I was farming full time, and I was giddy. I was happy. I was really burned out on engineering. I was ready for a change. 2011, kind of grew that a little bit. 2012, tried to grow it more, then the drought hit. We literally were almost bankrupt. I tell the story, I was one beech tree from falling on a piece of portable pig fence from being out of business. And I've got a picture, you won't see it here today, but it's a beech tree that broke off about 12 feet up in the air, and somehow by the grace of God, that thing stayed on the trunk and formed a triangle, and my hog fence was right underneath it. That was in the middle of the drought. We had one rainstorm on July 23rd. We got an inch, 2 inches of rain, and those pigs were the only thing that kept us in business. We lost money on cows. We broke even on chicken because of the drought. It was brutal. We purchased $4,000 of hay, fed it to our cows, and watched them lose weight and lost money. That was 2012. First 3 years farming full-time were pretty rough. 2013, we took our first little step down in poultry because we were starting to scale the other stuff up. Farmers markets were really starting to fire on all cylinders. Bulk was firing on all cylinders. We reduced cattle production because of the drought. I learned my lesson, stupid. You need more grass than you think you need, and then when you think you have enough, you should probably have some more, and then hold on to some extra hay also. This 2013, by about July, now this goes back to April of 2010, so this is over 3 years. That was the first time I can remember going out to lunch with my family, spending $50 and not cringing about how I was going to pay for it. So this is what runs through my mind when the guy calls and says, so I can be farming full-time in a year making 70 grand, right? No. I don't know how to tell you to do that. And I think somebody that says they know how to tell you to do that maybe has some ulterior motives. It's difficult. It's just really difficult. 14, things were kind of on cruise control here. We were able to take our first family vacation, like a legit actually go somewhere, spend money, stay somewhere nice vacation. So that took 4.5 years to get to that point. We paid for most of it. The grandparents kicked in a little bit. That was the Christmas present for the kids. But that was the first time we actually went and did something as a family in 4.5 years from a vacation standpoint. There's a lot of sacrifice. Kind of fast forwarding, you see these broilers starting to drop off. We kept the turkeys the same. The pigs were about the same. Slowly increasing the cattle, which is why the poultry is slowly going down. We dropped to 4 batches of broilers in 16. Again, we had that 2-week break. That was really nice. We went to a baseball game in the middle of the summer. That was fun. 2017, we produced a lot. I had a massive back injury. I couldn't walk for 10 days. We had a guy we go to church with. I've never been so happy in my life to know someone that was unemployed. Had grown up on a farm, had put himself through college by working on a farm, and said, I'll come and volunteer every day for as long as you need me. That's how we got through 2017. But again, we started trying to be more efficient. So we we only had 4 batches of chicken, and we made the batches larger so we could get our profitability up. Okay, and we constantly reinvesting, all right? 2018 was our peak year from a financial standpoint. I talked about that earlier. We actually dropped down to 3 batches of chicken. Man, that felt really good because we were only making that trek, hour and a half each way, 2 trips. 6 hours on the road for every batch of chickens. Maxing out the equipment I have. Like literally 600 chickens on this trailer live or in coolers. Like that was as much as I could possibly haul. We were really trying to maximize our profitability. You remember earlier I said we had that batch of chicken where we made like $11,700. It was one of these 3 batches that our death rate was super low and the chickens were huge. They just, perfect weather. And we made a really nice return on our investment there. Now, 2019, we cut poultry. We had some family contextual stuff going on, had a family member that got really ill, and I had to jump in and do a lot of stuff. We already kind of felt like we were at the point, maybe we want to drop poultry because of my back injury. I mentioned that back injury in 17, I had 2 more in 2018. I had 3 bulged discs in less than 18 months. I tell people all the time, I feel like the baseball player that played for 15 years and was pretty good, and then all of a sudden he just goes like this because his body betrays him. That was me. At 42 years of age, I stopped bouncing off the ground. That's what I like to tell people. So I began working off farm for the full-time for the first time in October. I had a really, really neat opportunity that came my way, and I was like, man, this just feels like a really good fit for life right now. So I took a step back. And the farm now is still like a really nice, almost full-time income for my wife at this point. Like that's kind of our strategy moving forward. But we've had to constantly reevaluate and look at like what is important to us contextually, what are our goals, what do we want to do with our family, and things change. And that's one thing I want to stress to you is that me being that engineer, I got to 2013, I'm like, this thing's flying. Like, we're making it, right? I just got to keep the plates spinning. Well, then things change. And you have to reassess and reevaluate, and things happen. So that's the big thing I want to stress here is that just because you get something figured out doesn't mean it's not going to change in the future, man. Context is so important. You hear people throw that around. You may think it's some kind of silly foo-foo term. It's very real, and it's something you need to pay special attention to. So kind of where we're at in our contextual goals now, why did we begin doing this? You can see all this food in this photograph, this is all local. That's our pork. Kale would be from Paul. He's a guy that's next to me at Broad Ripple, comes all the way down from like Plymouth, Indiana. The peppers and tomato are from Eli and Genesis. They just stepped out of the room. Onions were from another guy at the farmer's market, local honey. We believe in local food. We believe in really healthy food, eating well. That's what drove us into this. We got hooked on quote-unquote organic food when our oldest was just a little guy because he was ill and he was on repeated antibiotics and it wasn't working, and they started talking about invasive surgery, and we did a little reading, switched one food, and he healed right up. So we're a big believer in food. We had an opportunity to convert our family farm into something positive from an environmental standpoint. I'm all about taking out row crops and putting in perennial grasses. That's what makes me tick. That and grazing cows, I really dig it. Building soil, holding rainwater. That's really what I'm about. We really want to provide clean food to our community, not just for ourselves. We wanted to spend time together as a family while our boys were little. So there was a lot of sacrifice here. But like literally our family was together every day, 7 days a week. Sometimes that was a negative, okay? Sometimes you need a little break. But it was really great being able to be at home with my boys as they grew up. I think that's a very unique experience in today's culture. And it's something I wanted to do. I had the opportunity to do it. Again, I was suffering from corporate burnout. I really needed a change. A lot of young men that I have the opportunity to speak with that have come through some of the workshops I've been a part of see a lot of guys 28 to 35 years old that are like just wrestling with, what am I doing? I thought I knew what I wanted to do, and now I think I want to do this, and that's exactly where I was. And that's one of the reasons I like speaking and teaching so much, because I really like trying to mentor those guys. Very, very common theme. Like I said earlier, I had not planned to farm full-time. I was really happy I could. Moving forward, we want to continue to convert row crop acres into perennial systems. So currently, we've got 50 acres of fenced grazing. We've got 30 acres of perennial hay. We do make our own hay on farm for a number of reasons. I had a really hard time getting quality hay for my cows, and I was paying high prices. I've got a buddy of mine that's got a lot of the equipment. I got lucky. I didn't have to buy a lot of the expensive equipment. Otherwise, I'm not sure that making hay would make sense. But we've been able to convert a lot into perennial hay. We've still got about 55 acres that are in row crops. But in 2005, that was 145 acres. And if you look at what the NRCS says, in our area, kind of generally speaking, if you've got row crop area that's being dissed versus being in perennial grasses, you're losing 1 ton of soil per acre per year. Soil is the #1 export by weight in the United States, and it goes down the Mississippi Delta. Every large civilization that's ever existed and faltered because of annual agriculture. We want to convert as many acres as we can into something that's green. I think it's really cool that you can basically convert sunlight into nutrient-dense beef and repair the planet at the same time. That's a pretty cool model. And we're doing it every day, and it's something I'm very passionate about. So moving forward, like I said, this is kind of a full-time, used to be a full-time gig, financially speaking, but we're okay with this moving forward. We've had a shift because of a number of things that, again, were out of my control. Ill family members, severe back injuries, right? Those were out of my control, but we're okay with it. We satisfied a lot of our goals. We checked off a lot of boxes, and we're still doing positive stuff. We're going to keep growing our beef enterprise. That's not going to change. So some transitioning keys to success. Whether you're thinking, I want to be a part-time farmer, I want to be a full-time farmer, I want this to be a side hustle, whatever it is. Just some major lessons I would stress to anyone who's working off-farm full-time, right? And you're trying to build a farm enterprise, quote-unquote part-time. You're working 2 full-time jobs, okay? Especially early on, because you got to build everything from scratch, every spreadsheet, every brochure, every flyer, all of it. It just takes just a huge amount of energy and time. Focus on no more than 1 or maybe 2 new enterprises at a time. I talk with a lot of people. Maybe they're in their first or second year of farming. They've like got 6 different animals. And I'm kind of like, whoa. Okay, if some of those were homesteading and some of them are business, maybe. But years ago, somebody told me, they said, my strategy is, I started with chickens, I'm going to add 1 animal per year. And I'm going to grow into this. And that seemed really wise to me. That's what we did. I think it kept us from blowing up. I would always try and get one enterprise to about 80% proficiency. There's always room to get better, always. 13, 14 years in. There are still ways I can improve, things I can learn. But I want to get something like 80% of the way proficient before I add the next enterprise. And I'm talking from a business standpoint, okay? Make it cash flow on its own with its initial seed money. Do a budget. Figure it out. Do your homework. Put together a spreadsheet. If you're not doing spreadsheets, you need to stop. You need to start doing spreadsheets and figuring things out. They're not fun, but you've got to sit down and track your expenses and figure this thing out. Set up a budget for each enterprise and make certain it's profitable on its own before moving on, and then don't bail out bad enterprises with good enterprises. You may think something is profitable, but you're just taking money from over here and moving it over there, and really you're subsidizing it internally and you don't even realize it. So do annual assessments. Avoid time-intensive sales models, at least at first. If you're working off farm full-time and you're trying to get this thing going, I would not tell you to go do a farmer's market. Saturday is your day to get stuff done, and in the evenings and the mornings. You name it, I've done it. I've gone out, fed chickens at 4 o'clock in the morning. I've done it at 1 a.m. in the rain with the headlights of a truck while I was working off farm full time. I don't want to go back to that anytime soon, but I did it because I had to in the short term. So focus on, can I do bulk sales? Can I sell from the farm? Can I sell to this store, this restaurant, whatever that is? Email marketing is still the most effective means of communication, even with all the social media stuff. Social media a few years ago was phenomenal. Now, unless you're paying for advertising on social media, which is fine, it's their platform, but it's a neat way to tell a story. It's not a good way to sell stuff unless you're running a paid-for ad. Choose an enterprise that has a high ROI on your time if labor's an issue, if you've got limited time. Like if you're doing vegetables, it's hard to beat microgreens from a space and time standpoint. Start there. Grow into something else. Same thing with animals. Like if you've got the money to build fence and buy cows, that's actually the most efficient thing you can do from a labor standpoint. Chickens are the worst. They take a ton of time, and it's back-breaking work. Focus on low impact shelf-stable products. Again, larger animals, they take more money up front, and they have a longer ROI, but from a time management standpoint, with proper infrastructure, they can't be beat. I can take care of 4 dozen cows in 30 minutes a day. An hour if I'm sandbagging it. 2 hours if I've got to drag hose from one end of the farm to the other, or we've got to move them from one paddock to another one, and it takes 2 people or 3 people. But day in and day out, it's 30 minutes. It's quick. And again, we're building soil. We're converting sunshine into meat. It's just cool. Do not romanticize farming too much. You will let yourself down. It's not all, lollipops and rainbows and magical unicorns. I'm just being real with you. You romanticize this too much, you will quit, you will burn out. You can romanticize it a little. On the flip side, let your customers romanticize this as much as they want. Let them be connected with their food. I'm telling you, we would post a photograph of a newborn calf on social media, and people would get teary-eyed about that. They were like, I've helped this guy build this business. I've got a piece of that. We knew him when all he did was 50 chickens, right? And we've voted with our feet and with our wallet for all these years, and now they're birthing cows on their farm. They're finishing cows. They're fencing in more acres. They're planting more grass. Define why you are doing define why you're doing this, and stick to it, and have grit. You've got it. You really do have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps a lot. A few other expectations no one's going to tell you. I'll be happy to share them with you. Things we've learned the hard way. Who takes care of livestock if you're off the farm? Will they do a good job? Can you find someone to hire so that you can get a break? You need to write out procedures for them to follow. This is very important. Ben Hartman's kind of the king of this, having procedures written up, lean farming. He's a veg guy. Ben's one of the smartest dudes I've ever met in farming, and he's from Indiana. Even if you're doing livestock, I would say buy Ben's books. If you're doing vegetables and you don't have Ben's books, you should go order them today. He really leans things down. Procedures are huge so that you can walk away. Is your spouse on board? And I mean, are they really on board? My wife was not on board. She gave me her blessing to go do it. She told me, you can go below $600, but that's your thing. That's not my thing. That's your thing. So for about 4 years, it was Darby's thing. And about year 5 or year 6, she started to buy in, and it became a family thing. And by 2014, she was going to one farmer's market with one kid, and I was going to another farmer's market with the other kid, and it was a family thing. So that family vacation has a whole different meaning in the Simpson house, because those kids help pay for that vacation by working their tails off. Divorce rate among small farmers is really high. Be aware of that. Your commitment first is to that relationship, not the farm. I say that because I know a lot of people that were farming and married, and now they're divorced. I understand that you're now working 2 jobs and running a business if you're working off farm full time. And so it's almost like 3 things, because there's the day job, there's the farm, and then there's the business of the farm. So for me, we'd put the kids to bed at 8:30 or whatever, and I'd be sitting at the computer till midnight doing paperwork. Then I'm back up at 4 to go feed the animals. Then I go to the day job. Then I come home, see the kids and the wife for 2 or 3 hours. Then I'm back. It's just this. It's brutal. Early on, it's tough. A few final comments and thoughts here. You're going to need to operate with efficiency, the likes of which you never have. You will have to sacrifice pretty much all of your personal free time, and probably, I say expensive hobbies, probably cheap hobbies too, unless you've just got oodles of cash to invest up front. If you do, that's awesome. Farming by flashlight, we kind of coined that term in our house because literally out there doing stuff 4 a.m. or midnight by flashlight. It comes first, but it also comes last. Family, off-farm job, kids, other commitments, really you got to sandwich those in between. It's a lot to juggle. It's difficult. Our kids weren't able to do certain activities, again, because those things were on Saturdays a lot. That gets tough. It gets tedious. So they may suffer a little bit in the interim, so you got to make sure that they buy in. And I'd say by the time they're 10 or 12, by the time our kids were 10 or 12, these winter decisions that we would make as a family, the kids had input, right? Anger, stress, anxiety can tend to rise up at the worst possible moment. And again, those social engagements are tough. So again, I want to encourage you because this is a fight worth taking on, but I also just want to caution you. Okay, this is not easy. If it was easy, anybody could do it. So I thank you for being here. I thank you for wanting to join the fight for real food. And I just want to inspire you to go out and try your hardest. I always thought to myself, I never want to be in my 80s, sitting back and wondering, could I have made it? At least now I know I could. So that's all I got, guys.
Thank you.